Hey guys, Jason here with the One Stop How To Guys, bringing you episode 18 of Practical Drupal Development. In this episode, we are going to dive into Drupal's web form module. Now, this will probably be a slightly longer tutorial just because the web form module is a bit more robust than some of the other ones that we've downloaded. Now, if you have any prior history of building websites, and if you've built them by hand, you know that one of the most frustrating parts of building that website is creating the web form and making that web form work and send the emails to the appropriate people, and it can just be somewhat of a painful experience. And Drupal really has provided us with a wonderful solution in the web form module. Now, I do want to say one thing about this module, and that is that when I have downloaded, the one that I've downloaded is the 7.4 beta version. Reason being is because it has some extended functionality that I really like, and you can download the stable release if you like, but the beta version is pretty stable and it has some extended functionality, and I just really like it a lot better. Now, on a note on that, it does require that your server is running PHP version 5.3 or higher, and that will get you rolling. So select the one that you want from down here. Like I said, I'm using the beta version. You can use the stable version. If you use the stable version, there may be some slight differences between what I'm doing and what you're doing, but they shouldn't be that major for what we're going to handle in this series. So go ahead and get that downloaded, extract it into Sites All Modules, and head back over to your site. So we're going to hit the Modules tab here at the top, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and enable the web form module. Alrighty. Now, when you enable the web form module, it will automatically create for you a content type, and that content type will be called web form. Now, I want to explain a little bit about how this web form module works. There's two parts to it, essentially. There is the content type portion of it, and then there is the web form portion of it. And what it does is it creates a single content type that combines both of those items together. So within structure, content types, web form, if we go to its manage fields here, what we're managing here is not the web form itself. What we're managing here is the fields that are available on the web form content type. So, if you want to add an image field and a body field, much like we've done for every other content type on our site, it's no different. And this is just where we manage the fields for the content portion of this content type. Now, when you create an item of this content type, you can fill out those fields, and then once you click Save and Continue, it's going to provide you then with a portion of the content type that allows you to create the fields for your web form. So, let's dive into that and see how it works. If we go to Content, Add Content, and Web Form, we can see that the only thing that we have available to us here is a title. And, you know, that's nice, but I would like to have a body field here as well. So let's go to Structure, Content Types, Web Forms, Manage Fields, and let's just go ahead and toss a body field in here. We'll edit the machine name, call it webform_body, and we will make it type long text, text area with multiple rows. We'll go ahead and save that, continue through there. We'll make sure that the filtered text is on, and we'll save it. And that's all we really need to do. And while that's saving, I am going to head over to lipsum.com here and just get some of this for us. And we only need a really small paragraph there. So we will close that down. And now we can go to Add Content and Web Form here. And this will be our contact page. So we're just going to go ahead and call it contact. In fact, let's call it contact us. Now, what I do a lot of the times when I'm building sites within this body field is not just to simply, add in here arbitrary information. I mean, we're going to now for this portion of the tutorial, but a good thing to add into this portion of the web form are things like the phone number. So we'll say phone, and we'll just put in a phone number here. And then you can also shift enter and add a fax number here, and we will do the same thing for that. And another good thing to add into this portion of the web form is also some sort of an address. So basically what we're doing is we're adding just like simple basic content or contact information. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, the street. And we want this all in one place, one line. So we'll call this someplace, Ohio, 55555. And now we can kind of actually get rid of this test generated content here, and Drupal's being goofy. Alrighty, so this body field is really just going to be used to add some basic contact information to it, so that when people go to the contact page, it makes sense to have extra contact information. Maybe they don't want to send you an email, maybe they need to call you. It's a good place for all that kind of information. So again, this is just the content type portion of the web form module. So when we click save, what's going to happen is this is going to then take us to an additional editing page. Now this has never happened with any of the other content types that we've created. And this is the portion where we will actually be creating the web form that goes on this content type. So we're going to add some fields here. First of which we want to gather their name, and we just want it to be a text field, and we want to require this, and we will add it. Now the required checkbox will not allow this web form to be submitted without this field being filled out. And that's really kind of what we want to have happen here. So we will save this. There's really nothing that we need to change here. The next thing that we are going to collect is an email address, and there is an email field here, and we will require that as well. The reason that there is an email field here is because it will do some additional validation on the email. That way people are not submitting spam emails, but that they are actually valid emails here. There are some display settings in here within all of these text fields, and they are things like the width of the text and the placeholder text, and we'll cover this placeholder text here in a minute. This is something that is newly added to the web form module, and I'm really happy that they finally added this. And you can add some additional classes and things like that. You have control over whether or not the label is displayed and where it is displayed. But for now, just until we get this content type finished, we're just going to keep going through here. The next thing you may want to collect is a phone number. Now, a lot of people don't like to give out their phone number, and there is not a phone number field here. Now, there's an additional module that you can download called Telephone, and it does not format the telephone input field so that when you're typing in your phone number like 555-555-5555, it doesn't actually insert dashes or parentheses around any of the numbers, but it does when it fires off the email. So if you want your email to come back with a formatted telephone number, you can download the telephone module for the web form module, and I'm not going to do it just because I don't think that it's really going to be all that valuable for us at this point in time. So we're just going to make it a text field, and since a lot of people don't necessarily like to give out their phone number, they'll give you their email address, but most of the time they won't give you a phone number unless they want a phone call back. So we will not require that field, so that people have that as an optional field. Again, all the same things here. We can go ahead and save this. And we will say additional comments. And we will make this a text area, and we will require the additional comments. We'll scroll down here. One of the things that I always uncheck is this resizable, because it puts a hideous bar underneath the text field. You can still resize the text field even if this isn't selected, and I don't like that bar, and honestly it's one of my big pet peeves about its layout and display, so I always just turn it off. And now we have our web form. So when we close this down, Drupal will refresh. Now this isn't going to take you directly to the web form. To get there, you can go to Content. You can click here and find your new Contact Us page. Or the simpler route, when you have a lot of content on your site, you can just go up to Content Web Forms, and this will only display your web forms here. So we'll click Contact Us. And you can see, here is the body portion of our web form, and here is the web form portion of our web form that we have just created. Now, there's a couple of things in the basic content type setup that we did not change, so let's do that really quick. Content types, web form. We want to turn off the promote to front page. We don't want to display the authoring information. We want to close the comments. And we want to leave this in the menu. We don't need wait, and we need the web form enabled. So we will save that. Let's go over here and manage the display of the web form content type, and we will just get rid of the body's label. Now you can see that with this you have the ability to move the web form above or below, so it acts as if it's just another field for the display. So you can put it above the body, you can put it below the image, you can put it at the very bottom. I tend to leave mine at the very bottom so that any of the information is on top, and then the final thing that the people see before they get to the end of the page is the web form that you've just been describing on the top. So we'll go ahead and close that down. That'll get rid of the things that we no longer want. Now, there are some other fields within the web form module that I would like to explain to you. So if you click edit here on this page, that will bring you to the edit of the content type portion of it, and then the web form option will get you to the web form components here. Now, there is something in like the date module. It just allows you to enter in, or the date field allows you to enter in a date, the email. Field sets are just collapsible regions. So if you have, for example, if you're building a large application for your website, like an employment application, you may want to wrap things like the contact information within a field set called contact information, so that that is all grouped together, and then employment history would be all grouped together, and your references would be all grouped together. Now, we are not going to dive into building something as crazy as an application in this series. We will be doing it in the advanced series, simply because building applications, employment applications on Drupal is a huge process, and it needs thought out as far as how you're going to lay this out. So that'll get covered in the advanced series. We're just going to cover the basics here. Now, you can have your users upload a file, just different things here. But the select options is the one that I really want to cover here. So above the additional comments, because we really want that to be at the very bottom, we're going to say reason for contact. And we're going to leave it be select options, and we want to require that. We want to know why our users are contacting us. So the way that this works is in the options here, and we need to enter in some key value pairs. So basically, what we're going to enter in first is going to be the key, and then what we're going to enter in second is going to be the value that is actually displayed on the page. So you do that using the single pipe separator, which is the farthest key on the right above the enter key on most keyboards, and it looks just like this. So the first thing that we are going to enter in here is the key, and we'll just call that questions. And then the second thing that we are going to enter in here is the value, which is also going to be question. And let's make this a singular. So, first option is that we have a question. The second option is Let's go ahead and change this here. Sorry, my computer doesn't like my screen recorder sometimes. The second option that we're going to add in here is maybe a site issue. Maybe there's something wrong with our website and they want to let us know that. So we have a site issue here. And the final thing that we want to add here is maybe just a thank you option. And you can think of some better options than what I have done here. A lot of the times we separate these out by departments, so maybe you want to contact the finance office, or maybe you want to contact the teaching staff, stuff like that. And you can separate out the different departments of the company that you're working for so that they know when this email comes through, well, this is who it's supposed to go to. So we are going to leave everything here. You can make it a list box. You can randomize the options. If this is a survey, a lot of times people will select certain options based on where they are in the list. So instead of trying to get this, maybe slightly flawed information that has come through, you randomize those options so it limits the potential of people just always taking C, that kind of thing here. We are going to go ahead and use list box because we don't want radio buttons. We really just don't want radio buttons and checkboxes. We want a nice select list that they can click on that has a drop down, and that's all that really does. So we will go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and close this down. And you can see here that we have our select box with the reason for contact here. All right, so that is the basics of how to create a web form. And you can really go nuts with these. You can make them kind of long, you can make them kind of short. I do want to put out a disclaimer here about web forms. Web forms are the portion of your website where the people who you are communicating your views, your ideas, your business platform to have the option and the ability to communicate back to you. So you have to think of it somewhat like a conversation, that your whole website is your portion of the conversation and the web form is their portion of the conversation. So you have to think about some things that happen in normal conversations. When you first meet somebody for the first time, you don't ask them tons and tons of personal questions. So you don't want to be asking things that are really prying into your users. So your contact page should not be asking somebody for their social security number. Also, you don't ask the same question over and over and over again. So if you have multiple web forms on your website, the last thing that a user wants to do is have to constantly fill out their name, their email address, their phone number for every single web form. They want to be able to say, this is my name, this is who I am, now let me fill out all of this other stuff. So don't be asking the same questions over and over and over again. Don't be prying for information on simple contact forms. And if you are going to ask for something like a social security number, for example, if you are doing an employment application and you need to ask for something like that, you had better have a very, very good reason for asking for that kind of information. You have to remember, at the end of the day, while people may be familiar with your company, they may be familiar with what they do, they are not familiar with you. And therefore, they are not going to want to give out that kind of sensitive information without having a valid, justifiable reason for giving that information out. Also, if you are asking for information that is sensitive like that, it is always best to reassure your users that the information that they are providing you with is only going to you, and that you're not going to be using that information for any kind of hostile purposes or any kind of negative reasons. You're not going to be giving their email address out to all kinds of spam organizations who are going to want to then, send them spam. So make sure that you are very clear with your users. And remember, this is a conversation. You are trying to make your end user feel comfortable with you. And you have to think of it in that way. So when you're creating your web forms, it's important that you think, how would I talk to my customers? And how would I like my customers to be able to respond to me? Don't pry. Don't repeat yourself. and make sure that you have good reasons for asking for the information that you're asking for. So that is kind of a disclaimer on web forms, and I wanted to get that out. I know that it was kind of long and that we didn't really do anything for that time, but that is very, very, very important to building web forms. It should be Web Form 101 that you don't ask for those kind of things and you treat it like a conversation. Okay, sorry about all that. So, what happens when the user hits submit? Well, as of right now, when you first install the web form module, it will take you to another page and it will put the results in this results tab. So let's go ahead and fill this out. I'm going to say that my name is Jason. My email is, we'll just go with email@email.com. Our phone number is, again, a bunch of 5s. We are going to contact with a question, and I'm just going to say, just have a question for you. So we will submit this. The web form module will take you to this page here that says, thank you, your web form submission has been received. And then you can go back to the form and it lets you know, here's your progress. This is how far it is. If this was taking us to another page, another section of the web form, page 2, it would let us know where we were at in that process. But now we know this is over and I can go back to the form. And that's another important piece. Let your users know where they're at in this process. So, that is not going to fire off an email to anyone. The only place that we are going to be able to see that web form submission is the results tab here. And you'll see that we have one submission, and it was submitted today on the 11th. It was submitted by the user OneStop. And if it is not somebody who's logged into your website, it will just come up as anonymous user. So you may want to ask for that name on that contact form because you won't know who it is based off of the user. And then if we just click view here, we can view that email submission right here. We can see that it was sent by Jason. This is my email address. This is my phone number. I contacted with a question, and I just have a question for you. Now, I don't understand why we can edit these. There's really no reason for us to be able to edit this. Now, I do understand why there's an edit tab, and it is for other uses of the web form, but for this, there's no reason to use that. And you can delete the submission as well. So, that's basic 101 web form creation. Now, let's get into how we can fire off an email. If we click the web form tab there, you can see up here that there's this emails tab right in between form settings and conditionals, and we are not going to be covering conditionals in this particular series. Conditionals can be quite complicated in order to use. Feel free to play around with all of this stuff, but we're not going to be covering conditionals in this series. We will cover it in the next series. So let's click on emails here. So this email address here is who is going to receive this email with this web form submission in it. So we will say email@email.com. Now, if you have a valid internet connection and you enter in a valid email address here, this site will fire you off an email. So if you want to test this out, feel free to enter in your actual email address, and Drupal, even though it's on a local server, even though it's not on the web itself, if you have a valid internet connection, this will fire you off an email. So it's really nice for testing. So we are going to add that. And as you can see here, you can customize the email's subject just by putting that in there, or you can do it based off of a component. So we might say that we want to use the reason for contact as the email, so that when that email comes through, the email subject is the value that they selected from that form component, which would let us know, hey, this is a question, hey, this is that. You can also do email addresses from form components. Now, we don't have something set up right now that will function the way that we need it to, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. I think it's something that's important to cover in the basics of email or web forms. So for now, we're just going to leave that as default, but we're going to come back to that in a minute. And then the email from name, why don't we just say that it's from the person's name? And here is the default template for emails. Now, there are quite a few modules out there that will allow you to customize the email a little more than what's included here. Now, what's happening here basically is that it's providing you with some basic information, and then it's basically taking the entire web form, going field by field by field, and entering those fields into the email that it fires off, and then just gives you some final information about where you can view that. We, again, are not going to be covering customizing this at all in this particular series. It's a little bit too complicated, it's a little too heavy, and I just don't think that it's something that we need to be covering here. Just knowing that the email will fire off with all of the fields is good enough. Now, you can browse these available tokens here if you want to try to figure this out yourself, and I will give you kind of a pointer as to where to start. This guy here, the submission values question mark, is kind of the I want to grab this field token. So basically, you enter this in here. So if you want to say name, and then you just want to enter in the name value here, you would replace this question mark here, and I know it's name just because of how we set it up, and I'll show you what you replace that with here in a second. And then you can format that, and you can grab each individual value as you go. But we're not going to be covering anything more than that because it can be quite heavy. And we'll save the email settings that we have set up here. And just before I forget to show you this, if you come back to Form Components and you click Edit on the component, this field key right here is what you are going to replace that question mark with. So I hope that helps on get you started on your search there, but we'll cover that more in the next series. So how do we do conditional emails based off of a select option box? That would be kind of helpful. So let's go into the web form here, and let's just say that we need to reorder that for some reason. That moved around. Let's just reorder that and save it real quick here. All right, let's say department, and we are going to make this a select options box, and we are going to require this because this is going to be the determining factor as to where these emails go. So just like before, we need a key and we need a value. So our values are going to be the tutorials department, our fine wine department, and let's just say the website department. So what do we enter in here for the keys? Simply put, the email address. So if we want this one to go to email, how about tutorials@email.com, and then we want this to go to finewine@email.com, and we want this to go to website@email.com. Now, it's always good to do something like info@email.com and just say general email. So there's not a specific department that they want this to go in. This is just kind of the collect-all. So we will save this. We need to go back in there and make that a select list. Let me show you what it looks like without it, though. You can see here that we just get radio buttons. And if we make this a multiple select, if you can select more than one, then it will become a checkbox list. And actually, let's leave it that way. And let's come into the department real quick here, and let's allow them to select multiple options. Let's see where it is here. There it is. And what's going to happen here is if they check multiple boxes, this will actually fire off emails to multiple email addresses. So maybe they wanted to send it to the tutorials department and the website department, letting them know, hey, there is an issue on this page and it's because of the tutorial guys. I don't know, maybe something like that. But this will actually fire off an email to both of these departments, or all of them if you select them all. So we're going to leave it just like that for now, just because I think it looks good. We need to come back into Webform here, head over to emails, and we need to edit our email. And if we come down here to the email address, we want to get this based off of the department. So this is going to allow us to then send this, sorry, my bad. We're going to leave that as default. It's up here. We need to email this email based on a form component, not based on a custom email address. So this is out. I'm sorry about that. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. So we need to email this based off of our department. And you can see here that we have each of these values in here, and they have changed this recently, so we no longer need to do it the other way. This is kind of nice. Before, you had to put those keys in there that way in order to have this come up this way. So it looks like now that they've changed it and they've updated it, you can just click a form component and based on that form component, and then you come over here and you enter in an email address. So this is very different, and I have not seen this before. So we will say this is tutorials@email.com. This one's finewine@email.com. website@email.com, and info@email.com. This is a significant upgrade, and this will make all of our lives a little bit easier on these conditional emails. So now if we save this, we are done. Now this email will be fired off to the correct department based on which option they select here. Now, I know that we are getting kind of long on this tutorial, but there is one more thing about the Webform module that I really want to show you. Two more, actually. So this is going to be a bit of a long tutorial. Let's head on over to the About page. Let's say that on all of our About pages, we want to provide a web form right here in the sidebar. How are we going to do that? How are we going to provide a web form on these pages? And we don't want to create a new one, because we could simply attach the web form module to this content type. And it's pretty simple. You come up to About Web Form and you just enable the web form functionality, and you can create a custom web form right here on this given content type. But that web form is going to be somewhere within the page content, and that's not what we want. We want it in the sidebar. So there are a couple of things that might run through your head. Is it through views? Is it through something else? Do we have to create a special kind of web form? And the answer to all of those is no. There is a quick and easy, painless way of creating a web form in a block form. So there is one thing we need to do here. We need to come into our menu, our main menu. We need to add a link to our contact us. And if we just do contact-us, the menu system is really smart. And the menu system will actually convert this over for you. It's one of the few things that does to the node ID. So I do feel comfortable entering in those path aliases. So we'll move it down here to the bottom. We'll save that. Close that down. And our main menu is actually full and complete now. So we can get over here to our contact page. Now, if you click on Web Form and come over here to the form settings, you'll be provided with a whole bunch of stuff. And what we are going to do is, since we are not going to be covering some of this stuff right now, we are going to close that, and we're going to close that as well. Under the advanced settings, the first checkbox should be available as block. We're going to click that, we're going to save that, and close this down. And all that did was allow us to now come to blocks and have a block version of the web form that we just created, and right there it is. So we are going to take this and we are going to put it in the sidebar first. We are going to scroll down and make sure that it's under our sidebar. We're going to configure it. We're going to make sure that it only shows up on our about pages by doing about/*. And we will save that down as well. And now when we close this and head on back over to our About section, you will see that we will have a web form in the sidebar. Now it clearly needs themed up. There are some issues here with these guys being too long, and we will cover that in the CSS portion of this series, so don't worry about that at all. But that is the way this web form here will function exactly the same way as if your user had gone to the contact page. Now, this is nice because this provides another place on your website for your user to give you feedback. This allows you to receive that feedback from another location, which increases the likelihood that the user is actually going to fill out this form. Now, all of the fields that we have placed in this form might not be appropriate for this specific sidebar, but I just wanted to show you how to get there so that you could actually put one here if you wanted to. Now, you can create as many web forms as you want to, so maybe you have a specific web form that goes into the side. Maybe it's just like a sign up for our newsletter. Maybe you want that there. Maybe you want it in the footer. And all it is a web form that provides an email address. And that's all it is. And then they enter in their name, their email address, they click submit. Maybe they don't even need to enter in their name. Maybe it's just their email address and they click submit and you just set them up on the email newsletter list. So that's kind of things that you can put around your website using the web form module. And let's go ahead and actually create one of those just really quick here. We're going to go web forms or content, add a web form here. And we'll do newsletter sign up. We don't need all of this extra stuff just because we're not going to use it. We're not going to ever have the user go to the newsletter sign up page. And this is just going to be email. And we'll require it since it's going to be the only field in this particular form. We are going to get rid of the label, and I'm going to show you quickly one of the other things that I wanted to show you here. Let's edit this. And let's enter in the placeholder text email address. And you'll see what that is in a second. If you have any kind of prior knowledge of HTML or anything like that, you'll know what that placeholder is. We'll come over to form settings. There is a specific, here's the other thing that I wanted to show you. This redirection location is the page that the user will be taken to after they click submit. So if you don't want to go to that default page and you want to create a specific node that maybe provides them with some follow-up information based on that email or based on that web form submission, you can take them to a custom page. We'll do that all in the other tutorial series. For now, that's just fine. I just wanted to point out where that was. We're going to make this available as a block. We are going to close this down. Head on into our blocks regions. And we are going to put this web form into the footer. And I'm going to put it above the copy right there. And we want this to be available on every page, so we'll go ahead and close that down. And we can see that we have our newsletter here, and we're going to theme this up so that we have the copyright, the newsletter, and then some social media icons here. And so that is just another use for the web form module right there. Now, I know we covered a lot. There was a lot that happened within this tutorial, and it's quite possible that you may have additional questions. Maybe you need to know something specific about the functionality of the web form module. Maybe there was just some stuff that we went through too fast and you didn't quite grasp it. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions on this stuff. any of the episodes in this series, any of the episodes on this channel. If you have questions, please feel free to email me those questions. My email address is always included in the description below this video. We covered a lot. There's probably a lot I missed, so if you do have any kind of specific questions, please feel free to email me with any of those. If you like this video, please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you in the next episode of One Stop How To Guys Practical Drupal Development. Later, guys.